things theology, all things theology. We chop it up properly, without an apology. Gotta give that theology to God, hallowed be, cause this is how we do it at all things theology.
But let's go to this here. Let's go, because this is what y'all want to hear. This is what y'all want to hear. Marcus Rogers jumps on the stream. Now, it almost sounds like this was planned, but that's just me. I can't prove that for certain. And he has a back and forth for a little bit with Jamal Bryant. So let's check this out.
No, pull it up right now. Pull it up right now. Get it done right now. What we got? Who we got? Is that? He's here, Mr. Rogers.
Doesn't that sound fake? I don't know. That's just me. Like, hey, good to see you finally. I don't know, but that's just me.
Insane, actually, because you actually joined us on a previous stream.
Right.
That's insane. Lionel, thank you so much. Marcus Rogers, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Wow. First of all, Marcus, I didn't even know you knew we was having a stream tonight.
He said, bro, you texted me. I'll just play it.
I was getting ready to go downstairs. The church is downstairs, and I saw it, so I just clicked and I was watching. So
well,
I just hopped on real quick.
Just so you know, we having everybody come up just asking Pastor Jamal questions here. Did you have a particular question for Pastor Jamal tonight? We're discussing what's going on right now, the aftermath of the election. Is there anything that you would like to ask Pastor Jamal?
Yeah, respectfully, I get people will probably want to talk about, well, the abortions thing, the LGBTQ, but I think we've had that conversation so many times, but just...
And Marcus actually didn't do too bad in this discussion. He made some valid points. Look, hey, I'll give credit where credit is due, right? You don't have to think someone is solid all the way to say, hey, look, that's a good question, right? So there's some good questions asked. I would have stayed on those questions, asked those questions. Hey, Jamal, do you believe that which is inside the womb is human and deserving of bodily autonomy? If he says yes, then boom, he's done. Right? I would have asked some more poignant questions on that. Again, everybody's got their different focuses, and I totally get that and understand that. Corey says, when Marcus is more biblical than you as a pastor, then you ain't really a pastor. You got some problems. Look, if Marcus is making biblical points, you need to get up out of the pulpit, right? But let's hear this first question.
Pastor Jamal, from some of the recent stuff I've seen, in the kingdom from a spiritual perspective.
Oh, pause. Let me say something. Let me give some advice to Marcus. Shorten your questions. Be more succinct in your questions, because if you ask a 2-minute, 3-minute question, it's just kind of losing track. But if you ask, hey, a 10 to 15 second question, just some word of advice, just a word of advice. Don't hurt me.
You got a lot of men of God and women of God saying one thing, and then it seems like a lot of people in the black church are saying another thing. And so do you really believe that like every white conservative, that supported Trump, is a racist, or it seems like those are kind of the undertones, or they're white supremacists, and that, black people who voted for him are like, Uncle Toms and coons and misinformed, because there's clearly a divide in the kingdom, and somebody's lying on the Holy Spirit. The Bible says, acknowledge God in all your ways, he will direct your path. So I personally feel, Pastor Jamal, if we pray about it, God, his word can't lie. He's going to tell us who to vote for. So I would just be curious about that, because that seems to be the response.
So the question is, just in case, this is a long way to ask it. The question is, hey, Jamal, do you think everybody that supports or voted for Donald Trump is a racist or a sellout? I mean, that's the question, right? So let's hear.
Obviously the policy, I don't see how any Christian can vote Democrat, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I don't think all Republicans are white supremacists. No, I think all black Republicans are coons or sellouts. I personally believe we need people on both sides of the aisle. I disagree, however, on some of the policies that I think are adverse to the African-American community, but I would not make a general sweeping statement. The reality is Dr. King, Frederick Douglass, and so many other civil rights heroes were Republican. So there's no way in the world I could say all Republicans are racist or sellouts.
I don't know if Jamal believes that. I don't know if Jamal Bryant really believes that. Y'all want to know why?
The devil is doing too much. He's doing too much. And he has used this election cycle to raise up demons who think that they are going to push us backwards in time. I don't know who the enemy thought he was playing with, but I need the enemy to serve notice that you are dealing with a free black man. I am not going to be intimidated or pushed around because you done raised up some white patriarchal preachers who think that they can throw off a black preacher who knows who he is and knows what he is called to do. You can try that with some other ones, but this one right here, you done picked the wrong one today. Just because you got a few black people that go to your church, that don't mean you ain't racist. Just because you done kissed a few black babies, don't mean that you ain't a white supremacist. And
Now, you can see, I think he's largely talking about Donnie Swaggart. Remember, because that's when all this controversy came out, and he ridiculed him in his sermon. But he's clearly talking about white people, right? You got a few white people in your church, don't mean you preach that black supremacy, baby. Preach it, preach it. She up there loving that. Yeah. Yeah, so he's just because you got a few black babies in your don't mean you ain't racist. Sir, calm down. Jamal, you're the racist one. So I don't know if he's being honest. I mean, even the sermon yesterday, he was ridiculing black people and calling them sellouts for not voting. So surely you believe they're sellouts for not voting for Kamala, and if they voted for Trump. So I don't think he being honest right there. But we'll go to the next 10-minute question from Marcus.
So if you would weigh the legislation side by side, like you go, obviously the Democrats, you got men in women's bathrooms. You know what I'm saying? I'm from Chicago. Democratic mayor, Atlanta Democratic mayor, California Democratic, New York Democratic, and we've been voting Democrat, but the schools haven't changed. That's why here in Chicago, you know, they've been going hard at the mayor. How is it that they got money, you know what I'm saying, for the migrants? They got credit cards for the migrants. They got all this stuff for the migrants, but not for the black community. So I don't understand why we go so hard for Democrats. Now, my main argument is that Democrats are turning America.
Shout out to Armisha with the super. She says, why are the people clapping and crying at racism? Because these people are bought and sold. Bought and sold. And Marcus is right here. All these, look at the big cities that are ran by Democrats. You got Atlanta, right? You got Baltimore, right? New York City. All these large, you know, suburban areas, I mean, that are major cities that are Democratic are terrible. AT Hell, can't forget about AT Hell, right? And they're the ones claiming to be about black people, but the money don't even get invested into black people, black businesses and things like that. Guess where that money going? It's going to illegal immigrants, right? Shout out to Chavez. Another super. Lyndon B. Johnson would love Jamal and Roland Martin.
To a Sodom and Gomorrah. But I don't understand why as black people, we have this loyalty to Democrats. They say, oh, we don't have the money. They got the money for Ukraine. They got the money for everybody else.
That's right.
You know, they say, oh, well, we're going to do this for black people. They never do it. They do something for the LGBTQ community. They do something for the migrants. So I don't understand why we go so hard for them as Christian black people when they're not doing nothing for us. They have predominantly all the black cities, right? The schools are terrible. We got a lot of young black men can't read, you know, at the appropriate grade level, and it's Democrats who are in charge. So from a spiritual perspective, when I weigh it, and also from a practical.
Christian Doc with the super. Marcus don't know the difference between a question, a monologue, a tantrum, and a prophecy. look, I'm letting them cook though, because it is a super long question. Like that's why I say, look, my philosophy when you're having back and forth exchange, or supposed to be having back and forth exchange, to make your question as succinct and short as humanly possible. Now, sometimes it does take a little longer to ask a question. But Marcus is making a lot of statements and put a question mark on the end. I'm just saying, but they're valid points. And as my brother Caldwell Apologetics, make sure you guys go sub to him, says he gonna deflect as always. Oh yeah, you've missed a lot of deflection. You've missed already a lot of deflection.
Perspective. It doesn't seem wise for black people to vote Democrat. I just want to know what you feel about that, Pastor.
Yes, I can meet you on the 50-yard line, the other side of it.
Now you got to meet me on my 10, because if you grant what I said, that's a lot to grant. You ain't meet me at the 50, because what's the other 50 that I'm not taking into consideration? Let's hear.
Is I don't see anything of where the Republicans have done anything. Again, I don't think that all blacks should.
Here's where the Republicans have done something. They're not promoting these things. The things Marcus brought up, they're not hindering black people in those areas, right? The money ain't going to illegal immigrants when they say, hey, we're going to give it to the black community, right? They're not trying to do the whole sex change, bathroom change, right? That stuff is being largely promoted by a particular party. Again, you have a little caving from the Republicans. My hope is that they don't become leftists as well. But that stuff is largely being promoted by one particular party. Yeah, you got to meet me in my end zone. But notice that he ain't answering the question.
Democrats, I don't think they should be all Republican. I think we need it on both sides. The Republicans have not produced anything that I can stand on outside of the issues that you raised in terms of pro-life and LGBT.
Those are some huge issues, and you don't even stand on those, Jamal. Don't act like you agree with what Marcus just said. Sorry, Marcus, let me defend you real quick. Don't act like you agree with what Marcus just said. You don't. You were up there just 2 seconds ago talking about you can't legislate a woman's body if you a man. Sir, that is a common tactic of a pro-choice argument. Look, if I can't say nothing about what women do to their children, since I'm not a woman and I don't have the woman parts, then women can't speak on fatherlessness. And don't try to demand, your child support then. How about that? Since you want other flip side of the coin, you see, my body, my choice, right? You see how dumb it is? Someone's lack of genitalia doesn't mean they can't address a situation. It's a dumb argument. But yeah, Jamal is definitely pro-choice. He's definitely pro-LGBT. I mean, you remember he apologized to the whole LGBT community. He don't believe what Marcus just said.
That have advanced the African American community. I can't point to anything.
That's my point. We haven't given them a chance. Yes, sir.
So we got.
And not to interrupt you because we gotta let.
Yeah,
yes,
Pastor Jamal,
sir.
you got to be out of here at 8:50, right? 8:55. Okay, go ahead, Marcus. We got one more.
I guess that's my point. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of other things we could talk about, but the thing is, if you look at it, the history is where the biggest black populations are, Democrats are running the show. And so when have we really even given the Republicans a chance to do anything? I mean, we could argue that, but if you look at all the major black cities, it's Democrat mayors, it's Democrat people that are running it. So I guess my argument would be, why not give the Republicans a chance?
Because you're saying that from the presupposition that Republicans have not been in charge. So
yeah, but over the last, I mean, you can come definitely out of like the civil rights era, when the black church largely became infatuated with democratic policies. Big cities have been largely Democrat for the most part, although historically with the black church, historically, let's go back, post-slavery days, the black church was largely Republican. This kind of something I got introduced to by watching a documentary called Uncle Tom. Very informative. I was like, wait a second. Black people were largely Republican? Yeah, then a shift happened. I think those shifts has to do with things like welfare. Because welfare, what did welfare do? Welfare got the husband, it got the father figure out of the home. because the only way you can get welfare is if you were a single mother. So now this woman could get supported, right, financially to have the daddy out of the home and take all these kids. So government now becomes daddy. Now that is beneficial to the Democratic Party, right? Yeah, we can get into some of those factors which change the landscape of black people, right? And let me just say this. I still know black people who don't rock with Trump and they still don't be on the LGBT stuff. That's some black people still don't be on that, right? They don't like Trump, and that's why I say you try to win black people with that. And a lot of black people don't support that stuff, even if they're not conservative, maybe by my lens, right?
You deal with that state funding. For example, they were trying to build a subway system from Atlanta, downtown Atlanta, into Decatur. The governor refused it. You can also talk about where the governor refused funding for people to get access to health care that came from the federal government. So I had a black mayor, but a Democratic mayor, but I had a Republican governor who refused federal funding. So again, the responsibility and the onus is on both sides. It's not just the mayor who is.
Let me just say this. I particularly don't want government as my daddy. As I kind of told y'all before, I want the government to just protect the borders, protect from foreign enemies, and just let me live a quiet life. Like, that's kind of what I want government to do. I am a strong proponent of small government. Leave me alone. That's my governmental policy, right? Take care of what you're supposed to do, but leave me alone. That's my government policy, right? Yeah. And so, yeah, we can get more into that, but let's keep
not operating outside of state funds and the state funds that are not running outside of the federal funds. So all of them have got to.
My brother Rick says Jamal Bryant is not being honest about the transportation situation. You know, I've come to realize that with Jamal, when he says something, there's probably more to the story. Like when he says they're trying to ban black books, like, right? You hear that? They trying to ban black books. They trying to get rid of the education system. These are two lies. What happened is, particularly in Florida, you had people being tired of things like critical race theory being taught. You had stuff like pornographic material being taught in schools that people were trying to say, this needs to get out of school, right? You have DEI stuff that people are not supporting, saying this is bad. Now, Jamal's mind interpret that as black books. They trying to rid the education for black people. You see? And so I take everything he says with a grain of salt, because more times than not, as Rick just said, he's not being honest about the situation.
Figure out how do we operate in a bipartisan community so it doesn't just rest on one. So we've had Republicans.
Oh, I do want to bring this up because earlier he said in the conversation with Marcus, we need both. He says we need both Democrat and Republican. And I'm going to call cap on that. He don't believe that. He don't believe that. You know why he don't believe that? Because he's only bringing one party to them. If he truly believed we needed both parties, which I don't agree with that. We don't need both parties. One party is lost their ever loving mind, right? One party we can have some hope for now, right? And so when he says, hey, we need both parties, but he's only bringing in one party to speak to his congregation. What do we call that? A Jamal Bryantism. That's what we may change the PhD in foolishness to a Jamal Bryantism.
Presidents who have had an opportunity. We've had Republican mayors who have had opportunities and governors. So on both sides, you have to make that demand, not just to one side.
I hear you. So, I mean, that's something that we would just have to, at a different point, pull up the actual, timelines and look at it. I know for a fact, Chicago, California, New York, there's been a couple Republicans, here and there. Last thing I ask you, how do you feel about, the whole thing with Kamala Harris, right? She said something about sex changes for prisoners, but we can't pay for,
Now, we've been watching Jamal Bryant ask or answer potentially these questions. Do you think he's going to answer it directly or deflect? Put 1 for deflect, 2 for answer.
Cancer patients, like how do they have money and taxpayer dollars for stuff like that? And how do we not look at that like that's demonic? That's strange to me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we got all this money for all this other stuff, and it's anti-Christ stuff.
Pastor Marcus, I agree with you on that place. I think that, again, I don't think that every issue, I would hope every issue that President Trump represents, you stand beside. I don't stand beside every issue that Vice President Kamala has proffered. And so I think that there needs to be a reallocation. I don't know how much of the show you were on, but I think there needs to be a reallocation because something is wrong with most of our public school systems are under.
And look at the public school systems that are that he's complaining about. It's a lot of these black ones, right? Which, okay, right? But look where they're at. Again, they're in Atlanta, LA, Baltimore, right? Where he previously was from, right? Look at some of these Dallas schools. Guess who largely is governing over those? Yeah, a lot of these Democratic politicians. And a lot of them are black, right? A lot of them are black. Well, y'all remember that lady? They had some great memes about her. I forgot her name. Because Mark is bringing about Chicago. What's the Chicago mayor? Or was? I don't even know if she's mayor now. Lightfoot. That's her name. Man, she done gone through it. Man. And look at Chicago. Chicago is a mess. Chicago is a absolute mess. And it's like, look at, I mean, just look at it, right? Who said that? Just look at it, right? That's all you got to do is look at the places you complain about and see who's running them. I mean, for years, not just 4 years or not just 2 years or 4 years, decades.
Funded, our teachers are funded, and they don't have the access to the technology that's necessary to globally complete. So I agree with you.
Well, I don't want to debo the conversation. I would love to sit down and talk with you, you know what I'm saying, privately, publicly, but I want to let other people get on here and just be respectful. So
it's an honor to talk.
He says, it's an honor to talk to you, Marcus. Now, I don't know if y'all remember that song, because, hold on, wait, what's that? Because he talked about that Hispanic pastor that messaged him. Well, when I first heard it, I didn't hear Hispanic. So I was like, was that Marcus Rogers? Hold on, I'll let y'all hear it just in case y'all didn't hear it. Just to see how he talked to people that disagree with him online. But in person, it's kind of a little different.
A pastor sent me a message on social media this week. Sent me a message, Latino pastor.
Now, at first when I heard that, I just heard a pastor. And I was like, I bet you that was Marcus. Or maybe he thinks Marcus is Latino. I don't know.
Sent me a message on social media inviting me to debate. The biblical merits of Donald Trump.
I can guarantee you the pastor didn't say that, the biblical merits of Donald Trump. But again, we don't see that message, so we can't say for certain.
And I had to tell him, in the words of John Henry Clark, I only debate my equals. All others I teach. Y'all ain't saying nothing. At this season of your life, you don't need to argue with folk. You ain't got to fight with folk who ain't got nothing to offer. You can't take constructive criticism from people that ain't built nothing.
That's so terrible, man. That is so terrible. He says, I can't have this conversation, right? Because they ain't got nothing to offer. I'm only going to teach you. So we've heard your sermons, sir. No. We've heard your sermons. Ain't nothing teachable in them. Unless you're trying to teach me what not to do. Yeah, so Marcus is his equal. That's a good point, Corey. He sat down, have a conversation with him. Maybe he's like, well, I got bum rushed. I didn't know that was going to happen. Oh, grace and peace. Thank you for watching another episode of All Things Theology. If you enjoyed what you heard today, go on and give me a like. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell. I promise to give you weekly lives, videos, interactions, exposing false teachers, sharing with you, the viewer, my theological beliefs, things about the culture, and the Bible. So if you're here for that, come on and join us. Also, if you would like to support this channel financially, you can do so by becoming a Patreon member or a YouTube member. Links are in the description below. You can see content before it drops. You can also have Q&A sessions with also other Patreon members, YouTube members as well. So if you would like that, hit the description link in below.